she helped me in my incarnations.
Yeah.
And she is the one who constantly reminds me, you're here to wake people up.
Yeah.
And that's how she puts it to me.
Mm-hmm.
And, the days that I want to walk away are the days where I just go, I can't believe I even do this, What the hell? It's crazy. Why do I still hear them? Why is this my real? Why is this my real? Why can't it be everybody else's real? And she's like, Jamie, you agreed to this.
Yeah.
Jamie, move forward, wake them up. You won't regret this. Because there's days where I'm overwhelmed by it and I don't want to do the readings because I'm so overwhelmed. And, I leave in tears and I get wrecked. I do my best to set my boundaries,
Yeah.
where you're like, I'm not taking it on. I'm just translating this like this. And, but it feels so close to home. And sometimes I miss home. I'm gonna cry right now. Are you kidding? I'm here. I'm not going anywhere.
You got to accentuate the positive. Wow, I feel good. A little bit of feel good goes a long way.
You're listening to Karen Swain, teacher of Deliberate Creation, accentuating the positive, showing you a way to a better life.
Accentuating the positive, it's not just fad, it's sanity. Who in their right mind would accentuate anything else?
If you feel like that's what you want to do.
We are on. Hello, welcome to Accentuate the Positive here with Karen Swain on Soul Traveller Radio. I'm so excited to have the everyday medium, don't know about that title, but everyday medium Jamie Butler, the founder of the Love and Light Centre and the Lighter Side Show. Hello, Jamie. How are you? So great to have you.
Hello, Karen. How are you?
Great. Jamie and I have been dancing around each other for a year or so now. Actually.
Yes.
You're a busy gal. You're up to a lot, and it's very exciting to hear about what you've been doing in the last year. A lot of people would know Jamie from the Channeling Eric series, which is an amazing phenomenon. I tell you what, I just loved what was happening on the Channeling Eric thing. But you've got big dreams, big plans, and we're going to talk about those during this interview. So it's so great to have you on the show.
I'm all open.
I'm all open. So, gosh, I've gone blank now. I'll have to edit this bit out.
No, don't edit it. Let's stay together. Two girls, same great vision, like in meditating. I sit down and I meditate on the, people that you're going to interact with. It's kind of, I call it the cheat sheet. I don't know if you do this too. And I kind of hang on the name and kind of look at them and connect to them energetically. And when we reached back out to have another interview, I just went, who's this girl? Who is she? I was like, tell her yes. We're like, really? I was like, yes, but you please tell her yes. I was like, this is great. This is phenomenal. Oh, she's in Australia. I was like, oh, I didn't know that. I was like, we're waking up people. We're doing the same thing. I was like,
Absolutely.
And so I tried to refrain as much as possible from kind of hunting you down, really, in the internet and the social media world, because I didn't want it to kind of influence where I thought you wanted to go with it and everything. And then upon starting this, I just feel like I've made a friend. It's just
soul sister.
That's so funny. I wanted to say that. And I thought, is that term a little like too woo-woo? Do you think she'd laugh at it? Because I'm human and you start to think about how are people going to hear you? Because one of the main goals is, like we were talking before, is taking all of this and just dumbing it down, making it digestible, making it everyday, hence the term everyday medium.
Everyday medium. So I asked Jamie before the show, how would you like me to introduce you? And she says everyday medium. And I go, sounds a bit cheesy American stuff, Because, I've got to say, Jamie is not an everyday medium. I've been in this industry for a long time, and I've seen some amazing healers, some amazing psychics. I started waking up when I was a teenager and started asking questions. Who am I? Why am I here? What's it all about, Alfie? So I'm a bit older now, like quite a lot older, and I've seen a lot. And when I first saw you online, doing the Eric's things, I was blown away at your ability to see, because what happens when you're seeing is you look like you're seeing with your eyes, it's kind of like you go, oh, there he is, he's sitting over there on the couch. It's like you're looking with your eyes. And that's something I wanted to talk to you about, because I see in my mind's eye, but I don't see with my eyes. I see light and I see orbs and I see lights around people and colours around people, but I don't see people like non-physical entities. Do you actually see them with your real eyes?
Yeah, I see them with I call it my outside eyes.
Outside eyes.
And I've often wondered why. When I was little, I would see them just the same. And I think that maybe my abilities developed that way because I would see people. So I designed the way that I interacted with energy to be similar to that, so it was okay. And it's just the way that it carried on all the way up. I don't think that it's any different. There took a time when I was 18, I started to come out publicly with it. And so I've been doing this now for 25 years.
Yeah.
There's times where they will work with me inside of my head, and I literally think I'm going crazy. There's other voices in my head, and I think I drew such a hard line that I needed to stay me, not to encroach on it. Maybe I just didn't know how to adapt to it. So even when I hear voices, they sound as if they're here on the outside rather than on the inside. But there's a few spirits who will talk in my head, and boy, that throws me for a loop. And there's sometimes they show the pictures in the head, and I'm like, I feel like I'm not in the room, but I'm in the room, but I don't know what's going on. So I'm more comfortable seeing them with my eyes.
Yeah, your ability blows me away because, when I found the Channeling Eric blog, I was hooked. I kind of started watching all the videos and watched you talk to so many different entities, so many different forms of consciousness in different planes and different realities, and then really looked at how you were communicating with them. And you talked about, some of them were talking like surround sound, some of them were coming from here, some of them were inside your head. Like it was all happening in a different way, and you were sort of adjusting to the way that the energy was being transmitted and you were translating it. It was really fascinating to see that. It's just fascinating. I find it fascinating, the whole thing.
Yeah. The Eric part, when Elisa proposed that we start having Eric bring in other entities.
Yeah.
She was like, listen, I think this is a great idea. And I was like, well, I'm good with just us three because that's always been the way I work. Mm-hmm. And of course, come on, if you have these abilities, like I tried to connect with Elvis, like love Elvis, never would show up. I could never find the celebrities. I could never do that. And I was like, why would that even be important, right? When we really get down to it, I don't need to. But Eric just had this way where he could almost just drag them in. And it was a hard thing to understand, with my own abilities and my own self-worth to have them in the room because I had tried personally for so long. But here, this kid is just dragging them in and we're talking to him. That was really interesting. And then the multidimensional beings and how they communicated, it was like really challenging, to just calm down, do the work, stay neutral, stay on the fence, stop the inner dialogue that I wanted to have and just do the work and check out.
Look, I think, so we were having this conversation before about making this more mainstream because, as I've had with lots of conversations on the show lately, the world is waking up. I mean, you look on mass media and you don't see that happening anytime soon. But then having been in this industry for such a long time, watching the groundswell and watching people, and what's fascinating? People that, like one of my favorite interviews is Garnet Schulhauser, who was a conservative corporate lawyer for he was in his late 50s when his spirit guide appeared to him as a homeless man on the street. And he had been asking, like, why am I here? What's life all about? He'd been asking the big questions, but he had not been reading any spiritual books. And he was just woken up, bang. And then he's been writing these amazing books and going on astral travels with his spirit guide, Albert, throughout the universe. And like you, he saw Albert on the street as a physical being. And he thought everybody else could see him, which I thought was really hilarious because here's this man walking down the street in a three-piece suit and he stops because this homeless man jumps in front of him and he thinks he's looking at a physical being. And he even, when he was interacting with him later, he was touching him and thinking he was talking to a homeless man. And it was a spirit guide that and Albert said nobody else could see him.
Can you imagine? it's phenomenal. Like, I thought as growing up, everybody saw the world the way I did.
Wow.
I thought everybody saw the other people that had lights and clown buttons, the little chakras, and the light that shines off the animals, the purple cats and the yellow trees, and everything had a glow to it. I just thought that was norm, until you start getting kicked out of art class because you can't draw what you see, realistic art class. And the teachers start questioning you on why you know stuff and you haven't been taught yet. And your mother, my mother, just got fed up with me telling her what was going to happen before it was happening, and saving seats for people she couldn't see, but they were so tangible and real for me. But I couldn't get the world to respond with me in it. And so I just kind of quietly shut down for a little while until I moved away to college. And from 18 on, it's just been a ride as being human and dealing with all the spirits that are around us.
So when you were a teenager, when you said you shut down, did you did you sort of say enough and stop seeing them? Or how did it work? I'm thinking of that movie, A Beautiful Mind, with he's got these 4 people that are talking to him all the time and he's trying to shut them out. It's a Hollywood movie. What's its name? A Beautiful Mind with Russell Crowe. Have you seen it?
I have not.
It's about this genius who becomes a bit schizophrenic, but he's got these 4 people that are with him all the time talking to him. One's a little girl, one's like a roommate. I can't remember who the other 2 are, but
and he closed it off.
He was trying. I think it's based on a true story. He was trying, but he never did. But they weren't really positive voices. They were, it was more about schizophrenia, I think, that movie. But, trying to shut out. Did you do that when you were a teenager?
No, it was when I was around 6. My mother had just had it. And so my mother made me say goodbye to those imaginary friends, to the people I was talking to and learning from. And she made sure that, when we drove away from vacation, that they were staying behind. And she reminded me, and she made sure I was cutting it loose. They had a hard time handling it. And I was getting older. I was in school. I shouldn't have this nonsense anymore. I'm sure it was exhausting and tiring. And from that moment on, I didn't see them in my space anymore, but I would feel them and I would dream about them. And honestly, as soon as I moved away to college and I had my own space with my brother, I started seeing things out of the corner of my eye. Things started happening. Dishes would fall out and roll. My keys would get stored in the refrigerator. Deadbolts would get locked. I mean, crazy, crazy stuff happening. And, your 2 roommates going, I swear I didn't touch anything. And you're just like, who do I trust? What's going down? And then having to manage that it's all coming back in. And the stuff they were saying was really beautiful. It was all like, we love you. We support you. You're okay. But I'm like, I'm not having this, fingers in the ears, rocking, asking them, go away, go away, go away. I can't tell you how many nights that I would just rock in the corner of my room and sleep on top of pillows because I was afraid to get into bed because they would be there. Hey, Jamie, how you doing? Do you have a great day? I'm just like, no, go away, go away. Bizarre, right? Why would I run from the nice voices?
It's fascinating. What I'm thinking is, we talked about you being the everyday medium, and I'm thinking you're no everyday medium. Anyway, but what I'm thinking is the kids, the kids coming in, because you're the way shower, right? Like you're not alone. There are others out there like you, but not a lot in your generation. But the kids coming in,
phenomenal, right?
Phenomenal. And so you're like, I've been there. I know. So you're like, it's okay. You're the sort of keeper for them. Like I don't know, what's the word I'm looking for? Yeah. I'm just sort of seeing what you're doing. It's amazing because there's so many kids coming in. Because I've had clients that bring their children, and the poor mothers, they don't understand. They're not with the program, and their kids are just doing all these amazing things, and they're like, what's going on? And you've got to say, they're not crazy. They're not on the spectrum.
They don't need medication.
They don't need medication. Oh, God. Do they not need medication?
I came home one day when my husband and I decided to have children. We definitely wanted children. We had to really sit down and talk it out. I said, what if because this has been handed down in my family, what if our children do this? He was like, okay, you know, he's pretty cool. And he's like, well, we're just not going to talk about it. We're not going to tell them you do this. And I said, I'm in for that. We don't have the spiritual garb. We don't have crystals in my house. We don't have nothing like that. It's kind of modern, a little dull. And we don't talk that language. And I don't whip out my Reiki hands every time something happens. You know, I kind of do it behind scenes. And one day I came home, my son was maybe 3.5, and he was on the floor crying, like hysterical, sobbing, shaking. And my husband's doing dishes. You know, he's like aggressively doing dishes. And I'm like, dude, you got to help the kid? He goes, I've done everything. This is your territory. He's like, just go talk to him. I was like, oh my God, what? And he's chanting, I broke it, I broke it, I broke it, I broke it. I was like, listen, kid, whatever you broke, it's okay. We can fix it. It's not important as long as you're okay. No, I broke it, Mama. I was like, show me. So he rolled over on his back because he's curled up on the floor, and he had his hands locked over like his belly button, and he just like peeled his fingers back like this, and he showed me beneath his belly button. He said, I broke it, Mama. It not spinning. And I was like, oh, shit. I was like, he's talking about his chakras, right? So I went, oh. I said, what's not spinning? He says, that, and he put his finger in it. And I said, well, does it have a color? He said, yeah, it brown. And he started sobbing, and he goes, it's supposed to be orange. And I was like, oh my God, like goosebumps telling it. I was like, dude, not only did he point to the location, he knew its spin. He knew it had a motion, and he knew the color was wrong. And so I said, listen, are you having a hard time pooping? You know, like you need some that. He's like, yes. And I said, okay, well, we'll deal with, you know, your congestion here, and it'll go back to working. And so he kind of laid off of it. I gave him a belly rub. And in the morning before we woke up, you could hear him in his room going, it fixed. And he was so excited. And you're like, okay, here I know it's a controlled environment. I know I never taught that child what chakras were, that they had color, that they spun, just everything. And he was coming up with his own language. I mean, he would call his hands flashlights. Wow. And he would call the action, he'd say, I shining. He says, oh, Mama, you shining today. You're happy. You know, and he would just leave the room. And you're like, okay. He'd call you ugly when you were lying because you weren't shining when you lied, and therefore you were ugly. He didn't mean that you were ugly looking. The energy was ugly. So he'd tell you that. Wow. He would tell people, his teachers, when they were pregnant and they weren't sharing that they were pregnant, and they would call me in as a parent and be like, Miss De Silva, I am pregnant and your child announced it in class today and I'm not sharing. I was like, oh my God. And he came whizzing out and he goes like, baby in the belly. And he's pointing to the teacher's belly. I was like, okay, there's certain things, baby, that you're going to see that you don't share anymore. And, you know, it was devastating to tell him that he couldn't just talk about it and use it just like the other 5 senses. He started to clamp it down. He had to gauge it, you know, just to be norm like the rest. And so it was a really rocky road to walk. And it wasn't until last year, he's 10, he's 11 now. He said, Mom, is it okay if I don't really talk about the dead people anymore? And I said, yeah, babe, you got to do what you want to do. And he said, okay. You know, so it's kind of been quiet in our house, a little sad, but blessings for him in my life because it helped me feel normal, you know, because here he certainly wasn't coming in with a teacher, promise you that. And my husband definitely wasn't doing anything. And they're showing us these abilities and how easy they are, and how we can learn that something's off within us if we just engage in that subtle light energy or the chakra system. You know, it's phenomenal. And this is everything that I've wanted to do. I've just wanted to be, I say it in my little mantra, I want to be the Martha Stewart of spirituality. I want to have like, you know, the little cute arts and crafts desk, and we talk about energy and chakras and what they do and just kind of wake everybody up. And then when they want to dive into it deeper, I want to slingshot them to all the wonderful teachers and hosts and gurus and everything that we have out there. Because a lot of people can't find that little jump to get into the information. You know, they'll grab a big book like Deepak or Gary Zukav, or even oh my God, who wrote The Power of Now?
Oh, Eckhart Tolle. Tolle. Yeah.
His words, right? They're like, all these writers are like big and wonderful, and people get stuck 2 chapters in it going, so I just want to quietly wake them up. So they read the books and they go deeper and they find it.
Mm-mm. Well, you and the kids are waking them up, because you just can't ignore what's going on with the children. So how old was your son when he was saying it's broken? He was about 4 at the time, was he?
Yeah, I was about 3.5. The first time, he didn't start speaking English until he was about 3. He spoke Portuguese around 2. And I was still pregnant. So he would be 2.5 is the first time he spoke about seeing someone and having them go away.
So
and
he was speaking Portuguese. Is your husband Portuguese?
He is. He's Brazilian. Yeah.
Is he just channeling Portuguese?
Yeah. In our household, the husband is the Mr. Mom. So he stayed at home and only spoke Portuguese and raised him. But so when he first started talking, he was probably 2.5, and he talked about seeing. And he'd always ask, "Who dat, mama? Who dat?" Or he'd walk around and show his hands, and he'd put them on you, and he'd count to 10. And then he'd look at it and go, "Nope." He'd put it back on, he'd count, and he'd go, "Okay, it's done. Come play." Like he did you a favor. Like, I fixed you. Now you come play with me. And I would tell my friends, "Hey, man, he did you a solid. You better go play." They're like, "What's your kid doing?" I'm like, I wasn't going to say anything.
Just think about the future, and when he's like in his 30s and 40s and all that come after him. Like, just think about the future. Isn't it?
Oh, Karen, you're giving me goosebumps.
I know.
Oh.
Yeah,
what a world it's going to be, right?
What the world is going to be. I know, but look, here's the thing. We were talking about this year being the year of illumination. There's all that politics going on in the States, which is so fascinating, the whole Hillary and Bernie and oh my God. But imagine if everyone had that ability to see. There would be no lying. There would be no undercover stuff, because you could see energy, right? So everything would have to be, there would have to be authenticity and exposure. You couldn't be a thief. You couldn't be. So this is something that happened to me when I was young. So as a young girl, not really psychic, but intuitive. I don't know what the hell was going on. I wasn't thinking about it too much when I was a kid, but I knew when people were lying, and they would smile at me and say things like that. And I just thought I was crazy, because I knew they were lying, and I couldn't work it out. I just couldn't work it out.
They were being ugly.
I was not seeing their energy probably like your son. I was feeling it. I was sensing it. I was knowing it. I was knowing that what they were saying and what I knew about them was different. But I couldn't argue with them, because I had to accept that what they're saying to me is the truth, because they're saying it to me, and otherwise I'm calling them a liar. And that was very confusing for me as a child. And mum dies when I'm, she gets sick and dies when I'm 16. So I start asking questions, and that was the beginning of it all. Like, who are we? And, that's when I started picking up all those Deepak Chopra books and stuff like that, so he was actually my wake up call, Deepak, because I could not come at God at all. I was probably an atheist. I just couldn't come at what the religions were saying about God. Every time I listen to someone, I'm thinking, that's bullshit. And then Deepak said, God is a field, an infinite field of potential. And I said, wow, I can get that, yeah.
Yeah, I kind of grew up Baptist, and I would sit in church as a little kid and just go, "That's not right. That's not right." And I remember my mom handing me paper and pencils and going, "Just draw, just tune out, just draw." And I'm like, "That's not right." And I remember being walked out of church. It didn't feel right. You're right. I church hopped quite a bit in college, just trying to find that fit. I wanted to belong.
Yeah,
Don't we all want to belong?
When I was talking to Elisa last year, we were talking about the energies within America, because America is such a different land to Australia. So here in Australia, we've got this massive land, right, and a very small population. I think there's about 26 million of us on the whole continent, right, this massive continent. And so there's a freedom here that's like no other place. There's like a freedom of thought. There's a freedom of energy. A lot of spiritual teachers who come here say they feel that. And in the States, there's so much of that religious, dogmatic sort of ideology and ways of thinking. And Elisa said to me, I was talking about that with Elisa. She said, poor Jamie, she's down in the South, you know, with all that really...
The Bible Belt.
The Bible Belt. So what's it like being you in the Bible Belt? That's the question I'm trying to ask.
I have often wondered, how the hell did I end up like here? Like I could be in California with like-minded people. Colorado, you know, there are some great places in the States where we're just abundantly thinking the same way. Yeah. And in here, there's a lot of people that aren't. And I would go and speak to colleges, lecture rooms, classes. And my friend once told me, he said, here in the Bible Belt, he says, you're going to find a wolf in every room. And he said, address the wolf, and then you'll have control over the room to listen to you. I said, okay. And it was a polite way of him saying, hey, we have very strong religious beliefs, and you're going to find one person that has strong enough to speak up and say, what you're doing is talking to the devil, you're playing God, you're occulting, you know, this whole phenomena, it's not real. Mm-hmm. And to address it was to talk a bit more about science and kind of show them that this is actually like questioning our ability to smell or our ability, you know, to touch or to feel. And dumbing it down that way allowed them to question it, and they could see that it was no longer a belief system to a God, but it was a human ability, as in the real traditional five senses. And so I got to separate it just enough to where you could talk about being intuitive, that it wouldn't spike anybody. And he would tell me, he goes, I think that's why you're here. You know, just talk about it, because there's so many people suffering because they're in this belief system, and there's no room for them to be themselves. Yet they're not interested in leaving it. They like their religion. It fits them well, except this one part. And so the way I like to at least teach it is not into any one religious belief system, but how do you yourself as a tool or an instrument show up in that belief system? So you fit in everywhere. So it's been a struggle, you know, and I definitely did not open my mouth up when I moved here. I was like, oh, I bag groceries. I would literally tell people I bag groceries at the grocery store because they wouldn't ask anything else about it. And then sure enough, someone would go, oh, wait, you're the one who sees dead people. And it was just like, you're like, where's your
out of the closet now? But the whole channeling Eric phenomena like totally got you out of that closet. It's like, no going back now. You know, you're out there on the internet. Yeah, that was fantastic. It was fantastic. Look, I learned a lot. There was a lot of questions that I'd had that were answered during those interviews, and then more people came into my life that I interviewed that just expanded on it. Like last year was a huge expansion for you know, knowing who we are and where we go and what else happens, and it just blew my mind. It's like, whoa, this human experience is so tiny in comparison to what else is possible. But you know, here we are here on this in this human experience. So we have to be here in this. Now I sort of understand why you want to call yourself the everyday medium, because you're surrounded by people that need to come to it slowly because of that thick, you know, collective
culture,
timeline culture.
There's a church on every corner. When you get outside of a neighborhood, there is a religious establishment on every corner here in Atlanta. Wow. In the South. And so it just shows you how much it is in our culture and how it helps people find their perseverance, their faith, their strength, things of that nature. But equally, those who are sensitive are suffering, and they want to know why their God isn't helping them. Yeah. It's not so much their God is definitely, the God is helping, but it's more of, how do you know your body well enough? You know, how can you have the words to it? I think communication is the number one thing that we are missing, the number one tool. And I love Eric Meadows would just get bent backwards when he gets so rowdy. And it was just like, chill out. He's like, there's not a word for it. And he'd say a few cuss words, and he'd be like, somebody make a word for it. I was like, yeah, we need more language words to express exactly what we're doing.
Yeah, and that's something that Esther is really good at. You know, Esther Hicks from the Abraham teachings. You know, she is bringing through new combinations of words to explain things really beautifully, I think. This woman that I was speaking to this week, the channel I was telling you about, Michaela, you know, she's finding that too. She's just come into her channeling in the last couple of years, and she's bringing through really you know, concepts that we have no words for, and she's struggling to find the word equivalent to the energy she's receiving. And I also saw you, oh, excuse me, my nose is running. Every time I do this, my nose runs for some reason. I also saw you
Energy moving.
Yeah, energy moving through my nose. Finding that word equivalent for something that you're perceiving. It's getting back to, you were talking about making it more mainstream, making it more scientific. Something that Esther said that really was defining for me was that, you know, where everything we're perceiving is energy that we're interpreting. So there are photons in the air that go into our eyes that translate into energy that we perceive as sight. And, you know, we perceive sound, like there's just vibration that goes into the ear, and then there's an interpretation of that energy into sound. And she was saying the same about intuitive. You know, it's just energy being interpreted through your emotions. You're feeling it, you're sensing it, you're seeing it with your, it's the same as our physical senses. It's just interpretation of energy. So I thought that was lovely mainstream understanding for something that seems so woo-woo.
Right? I would definitely hit the bell and agree with how she explained it.
Yeah,
like
great.
Jacking up your five senses just a little bit more. You know, how can you put your five senses to the test and make them work a little bit harder for you? Because they want to. They're already perceiving all the information within the energy that's around us. They're already doing it. Mm-hmm. It's just our level of opening up the faucet and allowing ourselves to believe in it as well. Mm-hmm. Everything that's getting translated is getting translated through our own belief system as well. So we have a few variables, you know, that need to get adjusted on the soundboard to make it harmonize just right, where we go, oh my God, I'm having an aha moment. I get it. And it's crazy because once you get that aha moment, you're in, you're done. And I wish more people would talk about that, because in our civilization, we say, there's a process. My cat is so getting my attention. Hi. There's a process that you need to study for something, and then you need to be in the career before you're seen as an authority figure in it, and that you know more. And with this enlightenment, oh my God, it can boil you down overnight. And all of a sudden, 3 months into it, you're like, I have to quit my job as a lawyer, as a doctor. That's, you know, it's happening everywhere. As a taxi cab driver, I'm now a psychic medium. I am now this. And then people just kind of laugh at it, and they're like, oh, sure you are. Mm-hmm, yeah, like you studied that all your life. And they're like, this is real. And they get it. And I wish we could just stand up and applaud those people who just acknowledged it and got it, because it's valid. It's valid. I don't know why we say, oh, well, you know, you must be good because you've done it for 10 years or 30 years or 25 years. You know, the time frame really doesn't matter with abilities like this.
Yeah, exactly. And then, you know, and then they try and regulate it. So then there's like a association for energetic medicine, and you have to fit into some sort of box. And it's like art, you know, an artist creates, and then they teach you, you know, my daughter was studying art, and I was saying to her art teacher, I don't know how you can teach anybody art, right? How do you teach somebody their creative abilities? And she said something beautiful to me. She said, we don't teach art here. This is this huge art school here in Sydney. She said, we just create a space where people can come together and collaborate and, you know, hang out and like bring through their creative. And I just said, great answer, you know. You can't teach the space. Yeah, you just create a space where people come together and collaborate and bring through their creative gifts. And I guess that's what you're doing with the Love and Light Center. This is why I want to talk to you about, you know, what's happening with the Love and Light Center, because at the time we tried to connect last year, you were really expanding the center. You were coming out of the channeling Eric, being the voice for Eric, and expanding the center. What are you doing with the center? What's going on there?
Yeah, it was at a point where I had to make a hard decision. You know, before I met channeling Eric, before I met Elisa, I was, you know, I already had the center. I was looking at I had shot a few pilots. I'm very interested in getting into media to mainstream this and have it very conversational. That excites me to no end. Being a teacher excites me. And once I got to the place where I was able to find a bigger space and build the center out a little bit more, the Center for Love and Light, which is basically, it's an event space. It's a rental space. When I moved to Atlanta and I wanted to teach classes, I had to go to a hotel and I had to pay enormous prices to rent a room at a hotel and, pay the food fee and the registrant fee, all this jazz. They had a few bookstores that would have rooms in the back that you could use, but it smelled, the light wasn't good. It didn't, it wasn't conducive for creating a great learning environment. And most of the people who had spaces were like, well, you have to work like I do. You need to give a reading to me so I can prove that you're okay. Because they didn't want to put a stamp of approval on me. And I said, I don't need you to approve me. I just want to rent the space. And it didn't exist. So the Center for Love and Light allows you to rent space at low cost that is non-denominational, that has good light, it has, wind, current, it has water features, it has everything that you need to kind of move energy and keep it clean. And then you decorate it, you make it what you need for your classes. And we have people worldwide. Danielle Gibbons, I believe you've had on your show. She's beautiful. She comes and rents. And it's phenomenal. So we start building a community like this. And then what grew from that was taking all of these classes and making an online institution, which is the Love and Light Institute, that we soft launched last year, but we're going to do a hard launch later this year. And it is where we're helping people cultivate their potential within, helping them realize that when you're making a decision in life, when you're a spiritual being, an emotional being, and a human body, we need to acknowledge the mind, body, emotion, and soul. And if we can get them all acknowledged and all on the same page or in the same room, then any choices that you're making are going to fulfill all your needs. A lot of our pain, separation, misunderstanding are all needs left unmet.
Yeah.
That's kind of the basis of nonviolent communication, which Eric Meadows would chime in so much about. So I put myself through nonviolent communication for the last year, and it's phenomenal. And you start to recognize where we're not meeting our needs. And the Institute was kind of born from that. We'll have online classes, live streaming classes, and we're going to try to keep everything low cost for people all over and run them at all kinds of hours so we can be a bit more global with it. So we get a lot of comments, from people from Australia. I mean, you had to wake up so early this morning. I'm so grateful for that. And it's like, Jeannie, you're teaching like at 6 p.m. at night. I can't do this. I'm waking up at 4 a.m. and 3 a.m. And I'm like, wow.
Yeah.
Incredible. And I want to be there for everyone. So we're shaking it up a little bit. And the Lighter Side show is similar to this here with KAren, and helping people see this conversation, how other people are perceiving and viewing their energy, their subtle light body, through interviews and just talking things out. And then I'm also doing the channelings now, which is that's a different turn for me, though I've been channeling since I was 22, so about 20 odd years.
This is Grace, your guide, and whoever else wants to come through. Yeah,
Maitland and Grace.
Maitland is the little girl, isn't she?
Yes, yeah. She cracks me up.
Yeah.
She was the one who would hide my keys in the freezer.
Oh, really?
Just letting you know that one.
Ah, that's so interesting. Yeah, it's I've lost. I had a question and I've lost my train of thought. It's so interesting having a conversation with you. I'm finding it really hard to stay in my logical mind. I keep spacing out. I did this with Michaela the other day too. I kept spacing out and like trying to come back to those questions that are in my logical mind. It's really interesting. I kept going,
what I really loved is you do similar things. I mean, you have your talk show, you're putting yourself out there very vulnerable so people can see you, how you're processing it and digging deeper for the viewers, which is, it's so needed, and being a channel and a reader.
Look, well, this is actually the question that I lost a minute ago, because when I saw your ability and how amazing you are, I thought to myself, isn't that interesting that she's doing the the Lighter Show now and interviewing other people because you're so amazing. You could focus happily on just doing readings and make lots of money, and then doing these shows, I don't know how much money, I'm not making money out of it. It's like a lot of time and a lot of effort and zero cost, but we're not doing it for the money, right? But I just found that I've got something to teach, but then you learn through people's stories. You learn through people's journeys. I mean, I remember reading a lot of Wayne Dyer's books when I was waking up, and he was doing the step 1, step 2, step 3. He had a lot of books like that, right? In one of his books, you'll see it when you believe it. He tells the story of finding his father and forgiving his father. Now, I could recite that word for word because it was his story. It was his journey. And I remembered every detail of it. And I remembered the lesson from it. And I remember reading that thinking, it is our stories that teach. It's not like step 1, step 2, step 3, be like this, do that. And I just thought, so I'm teaching through other people's stories. And that's what you're doing with your show too.
Yeah, I love it. And you're right. It doesn't, for right now, it's not bringing in anything. And, there's a moment where you wake up. There was a moment where I woke up and I said, I've been doing readings for a living now for 25 years, day in, day out. Yeah. I used to do 6 a day. Yeah. I do 4 a day now, and I work 3 days a week. And it's just like, I'm so grateful for it. I love it because I learn from every single one of them.
Yeah.
At the same time, as a person, I'm ready to take on a new kind. I'm ready to be challenged in another way. And for me, that shows up as, getting people's stories out, practicing my interviewing skills, showing people how to channel, becoming the teacher. And so for me, this is kind of lighting a new fire underneath my bum for a little bit now. And it's
he said bum. I love it. He said it just like an Aussie.
We say bum in our household. It's actually bunda, but I didn't think anybody would understand it.
Oh, bum, yeah. Mum and bum. Yeah, just like an Aussie. Instead of mom and butt. Sorry, I'm getting off track here. I think Maitland's here. She's making me giggly.
She has been circling around. Grace, Eric popped in for a little bit, and I was like, come on, man, give me a space just for a second.
Okay, so I want to talk about your relationship with Eric, because obviously you met Eric through Elisa, and you had this amazing relationship with him, and then you're like, okay, I want to do my own thing. So did Eric, what happened with Eric? Did he go away? Did you shoo him away? Did he sort of hang out and sort of sit on the couch?
Good luck.
Hey, I want to see what you're up to. Like, what's going on with this relationship with you and Eric?
I know when I first started telling him, I talked with Elisa probably about a year before we actually followed through with it, because she was ready to up it a notch. It's going really well. And
it is.
And the family was pulling together, and it was really exciting. And I was so afraid that I would really let her down one day, because I knew in my heart of hearts, I wanted to teach.
Yeah.
And I wasn't going to do this kind of reading for forever and a day. Like, I think channeling Eric really is going to sustain and need that. So, we started talking about it. And of course I was nervous as hell. I don't want to break anybody's heart or disappoint anybody. And so in the process of doing it, I would ask Eric, and I'd be like, is this okay? And he's like, you got to do what you got to do. I mean, he was number one encourager, and it was like a little surprising. And he kept saying, yeah, tell my mom to get a dude. I want a dude's voice. He wanted like a really man voice, to channel him and talk. And I was like, yeah, good luck on that. So, we went through all of that. And afterwards I thought, okay, well, see you around kind of a thing. But he'll show up at my house. He'll pull the pranks. There's times I'm texting Elisa, I'm like, he pulled a prank on me today. He cut this off. He did that. He chants apple to me for some reason. It drives me bananas. He'll get my daughter to chant apple, and she has no idea what she's repeating it. She's like, I don't know. I just want to say it. And I'm like, Eric, quit it. He messes with so many things.
Why? Did you ask him why he chants apple? Why do you chant apple?
He said it was just a word that was in his head that day. And he would just say it repetitively, and he just to irritate in a sweet way. He really is so adorable. And he'll show up sometimes in sessions randomly. Hey, I'm dropping in. Hey, let him know, da, 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 da. And then, he's kind of gone, and there's times where I've channeled, like when we separated channeling Eric, I didn't want to confuse anybody that, whatever work I was doing was going to be Eric. I needed to show them again that there were other guides and people that I've been working with previously.
Yeah.
And so I said, Eric, you got to give me a break so people can get used to who I am. Mm-hmm. And then I would come back from a channeling and everybody's like, ooh. And I'm like, damn, I knew it. Like Eric would crash the party is what he would call it. Hey, I crashed the party. Of course he did a phenomenal job. But, then I'm texting Elisa going, Eric showed up tonight. I wanted you to know, I didn't, put him on the billing. I didn't advertise. I told him to give me a break. And I was like, God, your son is so dedicated. Anytime he can get a message across to help people, that guy's going to do it.
Yeah.
I was like, how incredible is he? And he's not that he's so pushy and constantly breaks the rules. There's a ton that he obeys. I think I just like to talk about the ones that he breaks because I'm so surprised because I've never met another spirit who does that stuff.
Absolutely. Right? This is what I loved about the channeling Eric thing was that, like you, my, intent, mission, desire, dream in life is to make this phenomenon more, spirituality in general, more mainstream, right? It's not woo-woo, get it out of the crushed velvet and the dream.
Not woo-woo, it's true.
It's not woo-woo, it's true. And Eric was so relatable. He was so, like, I call him the dead dude because I just love that. It's like, yo, and he's so relatable and the energy of the kids, like, it's just, I love that his personality was so relatable. And obviously when we transition, someone, I think Paul Selig talked about it like this, we take our character with us. So there's an aspect of us that will never shift, but our personality, we're not the same personality. So we're not a 20-year-old boy when we're dead. And I'm thinking, how come he's still a 20-year-old boy when he's talking to you from spirit? But it's just like having that personality made it so relatable, so touchable, so accessible. It was just fabulous. Just fabulous. The fact that he's like swearing and like, dude.
I remember the first conversation when Elisa called me. It was a referral through another client, and she called in, and this cute, like curly, messy hair boy was just laying down some words. And I was like, it's kind of like, and I was stuttering, and she was like, just say it. And I was like, kind of at that point, I think it was even maybe 18, 19 years, I found some spirits who would cuss a little, but he was like hard into it. And I was just like, I don't know what's going on. And she was like, that's the proof I needed that it was him. I was like, you're kidding. That was phenomenal. And he never dropped the ball since then, just straight on with the language.
Oh, look, I just think it's fabulous. But let's talk about Grace, because she's another personality that's very strong. And even Danielle, when I was talking to Danielle, when she brings through Mother Mary, she, that there's another very strong personality there. It's really interesting how, because I always thought about spirit, I don't know. A lot of people who channeled, like when I started waking up to this, were like Elisa, hello, my dear ones. It was always very soft and beautiful and not really relatable. And it was interesting. And I couldn't listen to a lot of it because it just didn't feel right for me for some reason. I don't know why. It just didn't feel right. But Grace is also another very strong personality. She has an English accent. Who is Grace? And why does she have this English accent? What was her last incarnation? What was going on there?
I'm going to get her to show up so I know I'm answering the questions right. I met Grace when I was writing my book in 2008. And it took me a whole year to write it. And I remember sitting there going, why would this little story be so important? Because I remember hearing in the back of my head, write about this, write about that. And I'm like, that really doesn't mean anything. They're like, write it. And she came in over my shoulder, and there was really no humor within her. She was very dry. And she was speaking to me. And when I was doing meditation, she'd quietly show up and give me direction. And I thought, this is really nice, because about this time, I had had a guide in my meditation tell me, he was saying goodbye, that our time was up. And I kind of missed having that support around, and she filled it. Then on the opposing end, there was Maitland, jabbing me, filling me with jokes and poking me to move on. And so I had very serious and then very playful, crazy in a way. And when I started to do channelings, my goodness, that was more than 9 years ago, 10 years ago. I opened them to the public, and I would have about 40 people in a room, and I would start to channel. And Maitland immediately was like, I'm the opening act. She was like, I'm going to get everybody comfortable. And she would come in and answer questions all about animals and everything that she loved. And people were just like, this is kind of crazy. Thank you, And then Grace would come in, and there was no laughter, nothing. I mean, just straightforward. And when people started asking, because I never questioned her, what was your last incarnation? Why do you speak this way?
Mm-hmm.
Why? I would do that with Maitland, because I kind of got spooked that she was a little girl, honestly, because, I think of those horror movies and things, and she would, but she chooses to be that age.
Yeah.
And Grace's carnation that she associates the most with was in England. And she talks a lot about the relationship with her mother. I know she talks about being corseted. She talks about being strong and wanting to get dirty. They raised horses, and they had running and hunting dogs. So they had wealth, and she was expected to behave a certain way that rubbed her wrong. She really wanted to have more of the masculine strength, and it just wasn't expected of her at that time. So through the years, she starts to make jokes now, and she'll laugh at herself and share just a little bit more. I don't know why she's retained the accent. It doesn't do me any good. I mean, maybe it helped me in my head when I was meditating to separate who she was, or if she just really relied on that because it represented her personality the best. Because the way I met her is she would help people incarnate. She would counsel spirits and helping them kind of see why they were creating what they were creating, and how their free will played into these lessons that they were designing for themselves. I found that so interesting that I would quiz her on these things because I want to know more. I don't remember going through that. And she was like, I helped you. And she goes, I helped thousands of others. And there's times where I'll do readings and she'll come in and she goes, I remember you. And the person's like, oh, and she starts talking about these experiences, and you just watch the person's body just get calm and just go, this is crazy. I feel like I know her. Is that weird? Am I stealing your guide if I tell her to come with me and, ask her questions? I'm like, yeah, you can't steal Grace. I don't own her. So go ahead.
Yeah.
But,
so what relationship is she to you? She's not an aspect of your soul, is she? She's not your another lifetime. She's a no.
She helped me in my incarnations.
Yeah.
And she is the one who constantly reminds me, you're here to wake people up.
Yeah.
And that's how she puts it to me. And the days that I want to walk away are the days where I just go, I can't believe I even do this. What the hell? It's crazy. Why do I still hear them? Why is this my real? Why is this my real? Why can't it be everybody else's real? And she's like, Jamie, you agreed to this.
Yeah.
Jamie, move forward, wake them up. You won't regret this. Because there's days where I'm overwhelmed by it and I don't want to do the readings because I'm so overwhelmed. And, I leave in tears and I get wrecked. I do my best to set my boundaries,
Yeah.
where you're like, I'm not taking it on. I'm just translating this like this. And, but it feels so close to home. And sometimes I miss home. I'm going to cry right now. Are you kidding? I'm here. I'm not going anywhere. But there's, a deep sadness and a deep loneliness. And there's something else that a lot of people don't talk about. They're like, oh, Jamie, I wish I could do it like you do. I wish I had these gifts. I wish. And I'm like, really? Do you also wish that you felt this as well? Because I think with it comes that loneliness, because we agreed to be here.
Yeah. Oh, darling, I'm hearing you. This has been, to get really personal, this has been my struggle. Interestingly enough, since last year, since Eric, and I also spoke to Natalie Sudman last year, who was blown up in a bomb blast, and she found herself in front of like thousands of people. It was 1 minute in the body, the next minute, bang, she's in front of thousands of beings downloading. Like, she's quite an evolved soul, like no white lights and tunnels, just straight there. And she said, I'm not going back. And they said to her, let me just remind you of the agreement that you had.
Oh. Like already I'm like, oh my God, no, please keep her. Don't put her back. Put her back.
She came back and she wrote this amazing book called The Application of Impossible Things, which is amazing. It's just beautiful. It's such an amazing book. And, that's where she came. But knowing where you come from and knowing who you are and then being here, it's not easy. It's definitely not easy. And so my guides keep telling me that there is no separation between here and there. There is only your perception. And, you don't have to be dead to be dead. They keep telling me this because I'm like, I just want to go home. I just want to go home. And they're like, let me just remind you of your agreement. And they keep telling me, you are already home. You just have to shift your perception. Be home here. Like, be in the vibration of home here. Like, stop indulging in negative ideas that this is hard, this is difficult, this is not where I belong. All those are just thoughts that torture you while you're here. And when you go home, you look back on your physical mind and you go, oh, damn, I said I'd enjoy myself and I still indulged in all that crap.
Karen, are you going to teach that class? Teach that class of how it's not hard, how we be at home
Be at home here. Be at home. This is what they've said to me. They've said to me, it's like going to, I've said this a few times on interviews, it's like going, because they keep repeating it to me, going to Rome, going on holiday. So you come to Australia, right? And then while you're in Australia, you're seeing Bondi Beach and you're seeing the beauty of Australia and then thinking, I wish I was back in Atlanta. I wish I was home. I wish I was home. But it's kind of like, you came to have this holiday. You came to enjoy yourself. Be here and enjoy yourself and stop wishing you were home. And that's what they tell me. Because
this is one long holiday.
A long holiday. But, when you look at time through broader perspective, it's not even a nanosecond. I was having this discussion with Garnet about ghosts, like disembodied souls that wander around still attached to their egoic mind, thinking that they're, earthbound souls. Because I didn't believe in that. I just thought, Esther Hicks said, every soul that, every death, the soul reemerges, like you reemerge to pure positive energy. There's no souls walking the earth being lost. And the fact that the majority of us is non-physically focused anyway, like the higher self is non-physically focused, and there's these different timelines out in different time and space and dimensions all happening simultaneously. All our different lives are happening simultaneously. How can one soul be earthbound? So it's an aspect of the soul. It wouldn't be your soul, but an aspect that's still believing the egoic, the limited mind, even though they're not in a physical body. And I said to Garnet, why do their guides let them do that for like 200 years? And he said, but 200 years from that perspective is like,
right? There's moments, wow, are we about to get personal?
No.
I was going to share something I don't really share, but let's say I'll just speak in general. I had a moment where I wanted my guides to show up. I needed assistance. You can call it, maybe I was stuck in astral travel or an outer body travel, and I was begging. I needed them. Nobody came. I felt so abandoned. When I came to, it was just like, what were you guys doing? I needed help. I was calling for help. And they're like, well, it was your experience. We can't interfere when you allowed something and designed something for you. And I was like, that's not fair. I was like, I was consciously aware I needed help. Wouldn't that break it? That's free will. And they're like, sometimes, and this is an occasion, we're not available for that. And I tell them, boy, if I die and for some strange reason I choose just to kind of stay earthbound, I was like, you guys better scoop me up in a limo and drive me across to the higher dimensional planes and set me free. They're like, well, that you can choose. They kind of share that when you're there, as soon as you recognize that you're stuck in something or that you want help, that assistance is provided. But just knowing that there's other times where it's not provided, well, that just kind of blows my mind. I'm still learning about all of this.
But as they said, you've chosen that. Like, you've given yourself that challenge. Like, it's not that it's not provided, but you've said from that perspective, maybe not from our egoic perspective or personality, I'm going to take this challenge. Don't help me, don't help me, don't help me. I can do this. Don't help me, don't help me. I can do this. So like, that's been that choice that you've made. But when you're in it, I don't know.
Yeah.
It's like, think of climbing Mount Everest. Like, I can do this, I can do this. You get on the mountain, your fingers are falling off, you're half dead, and you say, I didn't choose this.
What? Save me. Nope.
And then you come down missing some fingers and you go, oh my God, I did that. I'm amazing.
Oh my gosh. I'm going to be returning to Antarctica. I went this March as a participant with Sir Robert Swan, and the Love and Light Institute is going to be teaching the leadership program in March 2017 to Antarctica. You said Mount Everest, and made me think of Antarctica. That's the coldest place I've ever seen. But
that's
that
amazing.
Yes, I'm so excited.
Antarctica. Oh, look, it's only just down the road from me, right?
Right. You just get on a boat and you can go, right?
Actually, no, we have to go to get there. We have to go down to South America, because you go down to South America and get on a boat. Yeah, there's no boats leaving Tasmania to Antarctica. We've got to go across to South America to get on a boat to get down there. Because I've had quite a few friends that have done that, have gone down to Antarctica. It seems to be I don't know what's going on with Antarctica. There seems to be it's attracting a lot of social entrepreneurs, change makers. Yeah, it's interesting.
Changing fast. Our world is changing fast, physically and energetically.
Yeah, it is. It's amazing. So where are we going with this conversation? It's already 8 o'clock.
It's so much fun being here with you.
I know. I keep having a problem hanging on to sort of thought. I just want to drop into this expanded space. But so Jamie Butler is the lighter side show. You're interviewing like this show, like Accentuate the Positive. I named this show Accentuate the Positive because that's the teaching in itself, right? When we're feeling like, I don't want to be here anymore. It's like, and my guides say, accentuate the positive. What's great about being here? What do you love about being here? That was actually something Eric said that through you that I found really helpful. So I think there were questions about what do you miss about being physical? And because, when you think of being non-physical, unlimited, expanded bliss, pure positive energy, just like no huge challenges. And he said, there's no stopping. Mm-hmm. You can't touch like that. You can't hit something. There's no, like when two energies meet and then they stop, like physical. And that really fascinated me. And I thought, imagine missing that tangible feeling, that stopping, that was helpful.
After that interview, man, I started hugging everybody. I would just announce, I'm a hugger. And I would just come in and grab people. I was like, I don't want to forget this.
Yeah.
Total strangers, and they're like, okay, I guess I'm a hugger. And I'm like, bring it in.
Something a friend of mine said to me after she transitioned. I had a good friend called Nikki who was born thalidomide affected. She had a few deformities, but most of them were internal, and she died at 40. Okay, they hate it when I say they die. Okay, she left her body at 40, and when I found out, I went swimming in the ocean, and she came to me and she said, "Remember the feeling of the ocean, Karen." She said, "Feel the waves upon your skin." Oh, it makes me cry thinking about it. She said, "To me, they're just a memory now." And I remember being in the ocean, feeling the water and thinking, oh, you can't feel that when you're dead, right?
No, right?
Wasn't that a message?
Right.
Feel the waves upon your skin, she was saying. She said, "To me, they're just a memory now." Yeah.
Yeah, that just makes my head just spin and reel, to the listeners. It's like, what is one of your favorite things to experience right now? Hold on to that.
Because I think that this work, when you read the books I've read, when you speak to people like you and you know who you are, that becomes a big issue, that, you don't want to be physical anymore, because it feels like it's so much nicer being dead, non-physical. But
my son threw that down one day. He was sitting on the couch. That was last year. And he was frustrated, and he just kind of put his hands down and he goes, "God, I just wish I were dead." And as a mom, I just threw up a little bit in my mouth, and then was just like, okay, listen to him. And I was like, yeah, why is that? And I was just trying to be really cash with it. And he goes, you remember, it's so much easier to be dead. And he goes, don't be upset, Mom. Like, I would pick Luca again. I would be Luca all over again. He's like, I love my life. He goes, don't get upset. And I was like, okay, cool. He goes, I wish life were like it when you were dead. And I was like, oh, buddy, I said, I get it. I know. Ease doesn't happen easily here. You really have to believe in it and feed that belief, empower it for the ease just to move so quickly. But once you get it, you get it. And, him growing up human, he's having a really hard time adjusting to it.
Yeah, I think a lot of the kids are too, because so many beings are coming in from higher dimensional planes to be a part of the shift now, and they've not had a lot of physical life experience, so they're not used to the thickness of this dimension, right? And they come in remembering who they are into this thick third dimensional construct, and they're like, what am I doing here? I said I was up for it, but once you get here, something really interesting that was said to me through someone I talked to was that, there's a concept that the third dimension being a lower dimension, a lower level of existence, is, we're evolving to a higher existence. But when you think about it, as a soul, that's pure positive energy, and it's easy, where, you can, if you read, Eric's book or your book, who we are as, because I got a real sense of who we are as non-physical through Eric's book, actually. He talked a lot about it, and I really got a sense of remembering it through the book. And I was like, wow, yeah, I remember. Coming into a third dimensional plane, this thick sort of time-space reality, is a challenge only an evolved soul is up for. It's not the new souls that come here, it's the evolved souls, because it's a challenge. It's like the Everest thing again. If you're a mountain climber, you don't climb Everest first. You start with small mountains and work your way up. And that was something that was made light to me through, I think, Garnet, was that, souls that incarnate onto a third dimension, into the denser planes, are souls that have had experiences in easier dimensions. They've sort of worked their way up to being human. So we're not new souls evolving, we're old souls challenging ourselves. I thought that was a really interesting distinction.
I like the way that's said, but it's hard because people who are listening, we kind of get sometimes stuck in the language saying new, old, so it suggests there's a beginning and an end.
Yeah.
But when you just said that they've had experience.
Like a school, not kindergarten, not new or old, but exactly, because there's no such thing as time, but it's not the kindergarten, it's like university as opposed to kindergarten. Yeah.
What I was going to say before, when you were talking about the kids coming in and having all these abilities already, like they're coming in at a certain level. They're just like, this is it. Yeah. And they prioritize so different. Like I had a mom come in today. She brought her little infant. Oh my God, he was like a tiny nugget. And they were talking about him and they're just like, listen, don't get upset with him. They're like, he has already prioritized that people are way more important than taking a test and doing well at school. So if he has a choice, he will help a friend rather than stay in class. Like he has already prioritized the importance of relationship over getting a grade. And so keep that in mind as you're parenting him and helping him, because if you focus on grades, he's going to have a hard time. And it started dawning on me. I was like, man, all these kids that people are now saying, they just think they own the place. They're being, righteous. There's another word for it. What is it?
There is. Anyway, it'll come to me in a minute.
Know-it-all, things like that, handed to them, No, I don't think it is. I think they're coming in and they've got priorities completely set up different. And thank God they do, because they're going to be the pokers and the motivators to help flip the way that we're organizing our culture, organizing our rules, our laws, things of that nature, to pay attention more towards the importance of humanness, the importance of our emotions, what our needs are, and not so much on the level of success, the monetary values coming in. I mean, it's going to change pretty fast.
I call them the disruptors. The change
making shirts now.
The disruptors. I love it. Look, I'm just thinking of my nephew. He came to me before he was born and said, hello. When I told my sister-in-law she was having a girl, then Thomas turned up. And I said, you're not a girl at all. And he goes, no, but he looked like a girl. He's so pretty. But he was born on September 11, right? That day, the day the towers came down, right? And I said to my brother, who doesn't believe it, and I said, well, we won't forget his birthday. Like, that's how I explained it, because I just thought, oh my God, he's here to change the world. I mean, he's come in on this day, like towers are falling. He's like, I'm down there. And anyway,
I'm getting in.
He's just so struggling at school. He just doesn't do school. And his parents are just tearing their hair out because he just does not do academia. And he's brilliant, psychic, beautiful boy, but his parents, who are not really awake, although they have this crazy sister and sister-in-law that's been talking this stuff for years, they're just struggling with him, and I just see that struggle with him, and I know they're not alone as parents with children who are the disruptors. They're just not going to fit in because they're not here to fit in. They're here to change the system.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I can't wait till we get to the place where we support those children by saying, hey, you don't have to go to traditional school. You don't have to be tested to certain levels.
Yeah.
You function a different way. You live in a different way. Let's support that. Mm-hmm. But we had to pull our kids out of traditional school in the States and find specialty schools where they could be happy in the learning process.
Yeah.
Both kids, they don't value school. They're like, It's not that they have respect for teachers. They love new information, but they love gaining it when they're interested in it. And then people are like, oh, well, you're not disciplining them enough. You're just letting them do what they want to do. And it's like, no, children are intelligent. They just won't harp on one topic. I love there was a study done about nutritional values. And we've been taught that there's a food pyramid and we have to eat everything within a day and to reach certain levels every day to have a healthy body. But when they studied toddlers and children eating, they would get engrossed in like all fruit in one day, veggies in the next, corn and starches, and then, proteins. And they found that over a 5 to 7 period day, if you had everything in the food pyramid, then you were sustaining a healthy body. It didn't have to be on a day-to-day basis. And it's like, well, our education kind of needs to support that too, but we just haven't gotten there quite yet.
There's so much work to do, isn't there, Jamie? Are you exhausted thinking about it?
You know, I guess that's why we're still here, huh? They're not going to like get the limo and pick us up.
You made that agreement. Remember
you made that agreement.
I remember. Because I think to myself, oh, you know, if it gets too hard, I'm just out of here. And they're like, Somebody told me I'm going to live to a really old age, and I'm like, really? Anyway, I'm getting off track.
No. That is so funny. Sometimes when things happen, I'll look at my husband and I go, but that's okay. You're going to die before I do. He's like, why do you say that? And I go, because I'm going to live a really long time. I'm so sorry. I was like, it's not like I want to. They just keep telling me, get ready. And I'm like, are you certain? Like 60 sounds kind of good. They're like, Isn't that fun? We talk about death like it's so casual.
Well, I know. I mean, as Esther says, you just have to get over this death thing. I mean, the thing is that when you do get over the death thing, this is a conversation I was having with Michaela the other day. Death creates the most suffering on the planet. You know, when people die, we mourn and we cry and death is just, I asked my guys, I wrote a book about 8 years ago called Return to Love. And it was about chatting to my dead friends and how they told me there's no such thing as death. And when I sat down and said, because they said to me when I was a dyslexic kid, you're going to be a writer. And I'm like, no way. I said, what would I write about? They said, write what you know. So chatting to your dead friends, and they tell you there's no such thing as death. And I remember thinking, what's the thing that causes the most pain on the planet? Maybe I need to address that. They said, death causes the most pain on the planet. So when you do get over that there's no such thing as death, that pain is not there. And that's something that the whole Channeling Eric thing did too, because here's a mother grieving a son who shoots himself, and now she has a closer relationship with him in non-physical than she did when he was physical, in a way.
Oh, right. Isn't it funny? She says, he talks to me more now than he ever did when he was alive. It just cracks me up because they're a perfect example of how this new relationship can carry forward because there is no death.
Exactly. Oh, darling, we got to go. I know, it's like 8:18 here.
Early morning.
So beautiful to
thank you so much for this. Yes.
It's really, really beautiful.
I hope to see you again. I hope we stay in touch.
I know we're going to do some work together. I don't know how that looks at the moment, but yeah.
I agree.
Work to do. Soul sister on the other side of the planet.
Hey, soul sister.
Hey, soul sister. Oh, so cute. So how am I going to end this? I suppose just tell people where your website is. Well, I'll have it on there.
Oh, yes. You can find me at withloveandlight.com. And I'm also launching a new site. It's Jamie Butler Medium. And of course, you can look up Jamie Butler Medium. We're on all the social media outlets, Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, Instagram. And of course, we're the Lighter Side Show is on iTunes. It's on SoundCloud and Stitcher. But we also record our podcasts, so you can watch them in video on YouTube as well. We're going to have a lot of product coming out, charts, little programs that you can take with you, online classes. For now, I'm teaching at the center in August and September on advanced mediumship, and then even out in LA in August and back in October, helping people learn how to communicate and adjust their perceptions so that they can have a more sensitivity to subtle light energy and kind of get that information from it, really use it to benefit their day-to-day life.
That was a question I wanted to ask you too. Is like, you know how you see with your physical eyes, can you teach someone to do that?
Yes. Oh, it's fascinating. Yes. And so I like to break it down more so in the science. We talk about how your eyeballs work, how the light comes in. Yeah. And then I train you in certain techniques, which, like the mirroring effect, the GANS effect, where you keep your eye open too long. Like, here's a little homework for anybody who's watching or listening. When you go to the grocery store, when people are buying the meat, in the meat section, it normally has fluorescent lighting. It's a little bad lighting. And they stay still pretty long enough because they want to get the best meat possible, that you can focus your eyes between their ears and their shoulder, or maybe their elbow and their waist, and look away from them, not on their body, but in the air next to them, not on the meat, not closer, but next to their body, in the air. You pick that focal point, keep your eyes open, don't blink, let them glaze over, and you'll start to see like gas fumes, little warpiness. And then once you get used to the warpiness, some of you right away might go ahead and see color. Common color to see when people are shopping and intently focused is yellow, because they're hashing out their recipe, they're looking at prices, and that's all heady energy, that's yellow. And sometimes blue for creativity, purchases, and expansion. And then you can catch them also at churches. Hospitals are great places. It's all bad lighting, people who stand still. If you really want to practice, try the 3D books, Magic Eye, the Magic Eye 3D series. You can buy them on Amazon, anywhere. If you can do that, that is the same eye technique where you're open and focused, but blurry. And I know that sounds contradictory, but once you catch it, then seeing subtle light, seeing light reflect off finer vibrational quality that's around you everywhere, you'll pick up the color. And then once you begin to do that, not only will you see auras, energetic fields, you'll see spirit made of the same thing. You know, it'll kind of come in the room and you're like, what?
Yeah, I guess I've been asking to see it because like when I saw you seeing Eric, like he was sitting on the couch, like he's sitting on my couch, I was like, I want to do that. But I can see all the shadows and lights and everything, but I can't see like looks like a real person standing there. And then I thought to myself, maybe if I did see that, it would really freak me out.
Right? You realize that you are not alone, and sometimes you wish you were alone. Like, go away.
I don't want to see it because it would really freak me out. Anyway, we could talk about this all day. Yeah, but I guess it's just intention and lining up with your intention. Yes. And then making a decision. Is this something you really want? Like, do you really want to do that? Yeah. Because maybe you're asking for something you don't want.
Right. Looking at how do you learn best is a big thing that I like to help people with. Are you more visual? Or are you more audio? Or are you more kinetic? Visual will be clairvoyance, seeing the energy, running the images in your head. Clairaudient would be the audio learning technique. And then, of course, claircognizance or empathic is the kinetic learner. So if you understand how you learn information in your human body, heighten that ease, and you'll find your clair, that you'll work with subtle light energy, and stick with that. Once you get good in one area, then you can just expand it across all of them. Yeah. I really think we're meant to have all of it.
Multi-sensory, intuitive. Yeah.
Yes.
I think
I believe is a norm. That's the new norm.
I do too. Yeah, exactly. Like years ago, people were talking about, you do it a certain way, but actually you do it always. It's like, yeah, you do all of it. Exactly. Yeah. Oh, darling, we must go. But thank you so much.
Have a great rest of your day. Thank you for having me. Take care.
Thanks so much for joining us for another enlightened conversation on Accentuate the Positive. If you would like spiritual guidance from my guides, Blissful Beings, go to KarenSwain.com for a reading, or to listen to more enlightened thought leaders share their wisdom. Go to the listen page on KarenSwain.com and choose who you want to listen to. All the podcasts are also available on iTunes. Remember to check us out on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, Pinterest, you name it, we're there. Until next time, bye for now.
If you feel like that's what you want to do,